Crota, God Knight, Light Destroyer, Eater of Hope, Monster of Luna, Sword of Pits, World Breaker, Prince of Annihilation, and Son of Navigation. He waits in the dark below. Gather your fire team and prepare to enter the abyss. Much like the Vault of Glass, a fire team came before you. They tried and failed to destroy Crota. Veltarlo, Omar-Aga, Sai-Mota, Ariana III, Toland the Shattered, and most importantly, Eris Morn. At Mare Ibrium, a host of thousands of guardians came united to retake the moon and were mercilessly slaughtered by the seemingly invincible Crota and his army of knights. The Hive have burrowed into the moon, turning the moon into a giant base for the Hive, where all who enter never return. Following this great disaster, Ariana III and Eris Morn sought to find another way to kill Crota. They consulted Toland the Shattered, the exiled master of Hive Arcana, who told them that Crota existed in another reality, one where he could be defeated. Veltarlo, Omar-Aga, and Sai-Mota, along with Eris, Ariana, and Toland, embarked on an expedition into the depths of the Hive Fortress on the moon. They were all believed to have perished in the Hellmouth. After many years, Eris Morn returned without her ghost, having somehow survived amongst the Hive, with tales of her fire team's failure and the demise of her comrades at the hands of Crota's disciples. Toland was also believed to have perished in the Hellmouth, but since the arrival of Oryx, we have received a number of messages from Toland. The other fire team members are presumed dead. Crota has mercilessly slaughtered thousands of guardians and done unspeakable things to Eris Morn's fire team. Veltarlo was killed by Alakul the Darkblade. Omar-Aga was killed by the Heart of Crota and had his light peeled from him. Sai-Mota was killed by Omnigul, Will of Crota. Ariana and Toland were made one with death by Iryut, the Death Singer. Toland died in every sense of the word, but he became something greater. He was granted an understanding of death, and in doing so was granted his own peace of the Ascendant Plane, where he may live on in the Sea of Screams. Eris Morn is the only one that truly survived. She lost her ghost and her eyes, and tore out the eyes of an acolyte to replace her own. 6 of them went down into the pit. Only she returned, with her Ahamkara bone and an understanding of Hive magic. She sought revenge of the highest degree. She returns to the towers and beckons guardians, warning them of Crota's impending return. Throughout the short campaign of the Dark Below, we take revenge on many of Crota's disciples. Eris Morn had this to say: "They are all here, on Earth. I can feel them. His eyes who watch our worlds for him. The hand whose grasp on Earth must be unbound. The heart who ceases at nothing to bring Crota back. And Omnigul, his vile will, the keeper of worms, the mother of his spawn. Find them, defeat them all. As long as even one of these monsters walk the earth, the threat of Crota will never fade. We destroy the sword of Crota, the heart of Crota, the fist of Crota, and the will of Crota, crushing his vile brood for good." And during the Shadowkeep campaign, we explore the fate of the first Crota fire team. But deep in the Hellmouth, the Hope Eater himself and his Death Singer await you. He hides in the dark below. The monster of Luna, the titanic god knight who walked the regolith beneath a sky of green fire and butchered the greatest army of guardians ever assembled. We abandoned the moon rather than face him. Whispered lore and fragmentary theories suggest that Crota represents a distinct class of Hive entities not resident in our material world. My latest synthesis of the scattered esoterica suggests that Crota's home is a universe created or remade by his power and occupied by Hive organisms of immense age. Any guardian formidable enough to return with information on this dark reality might help us understand the Hive's goal for our own world, and more pressingly, such an expedition might provide the key to Crota's defeat. The epithet, Son of Oryx, is an ambiguous translation, often disputed. At this time, no direct action by Hive entities of more expansive power has ever been observed. Those who trade in Hive lore bicker over the exact positioning of Crota. Is his world the apex of Hive power, or is it the youngest and most accessible of a string of netherworlds, each host to a more terrible Hive arch-entity? The nature and possible interrelationship of the Vex Gate system with the Hive netherworlds remains unexplored. Ikora. When your fire team lands, you are presented with a plate. This is the first step of entering the abyss. Waves of Thrall attempt to stop you, but your light outshines even the darkest of the Hive's minions. The first bridge is formed, and your team will now have to step into the stills. A labyrinth of darkness. Merely being down here can snuff out your light and destroy you. You must navigate your way through this darkness, lighting lamps along the way to brighten your path. But even this light is corrupted. Standing by these lamps for too long will demolish you. So proceed carefully. Preserve your light. May it serve as your torch in this darkness where no light survives. You push further and further until you find yet another plate. This bridge will take you to the Ascendant Plane. The blinding light pulls you forward, and you enter the Oversoul Throne. Cross the Great Bridge. Before you is a plate and 2 Annihilator Totems. In order to build the bridge, you must hold the plate and the Annihilator Totems. Fail to hold the plate, and your way forward will never form. And fail to hold the Annihilator Totems, and you and your fire team will be doomed to destruction. Your fire team's goal is to form the bridge and acquire 5 swords to defeat the gatekeepers. Bring your fire team to the other side, and all that remains is the Hive's defense. Crush your way through the gatekeepers and the shriekers, and make your way to Crota's chamber, where Ir-Yût awaits you. Ir-Yût's Grimoire card is presumably from the point of view of Toland the Shattered, speaking with Ariana 3 of the first Crota fire team. Ariana, let's sing. Sing with me. No, you rattling machine. Not yet. It's too soon. We don't know the words. We'll learn the song down there. We can learn it from her. She comes up from the deep, dark places where the Greater Hive await to sing it to us. And here's a puzzle for you. The song is death. To hear it is to die. To know the words is mortal. Oh, good point. Ariana, death is just a word, isn't it? A catch-all term for the failure to go on. Nothing spiritual. Nothing with its own quiddity. We all died once, and it did not prove insurmountable. But what if? Shh. Listen. What if death were reified, described in its totality, made autonomous and universal, separate from any context or condition? What if she could invoke the ending of anything? How, then, would she know the song and sing it without herself dying? Perhaps they know a way to make themselves part of the song, part of something vast and burning that rots and peels into ash, but never ends. Perhaps she has engineered this for him and pinned his power up against the quiddity of death itself. I am so terribly curious to know. This tells us a lot more about Toland, but not very much about the Deathsinger herself. We do know that the Deathsinger's understanding of death is the deepest among the Hive, rivaled only by Ir-Anûk and Ir-Halak, Crota's sisters and fellow Deathsingers. Ir-Yût weaves death into a beautiful song. Her dark liturgy completely kills the listeners. Hive wizard magic is terrifying and powerful. It is probably the closest thing to true death in the universe. Your fire team is attacked relentlessly by Crota's minions and Ir-Yût. These disciples of Crota are all that stand between you and Crota himself. You must kill the wizards that are assisting the Deathsinger, protecting her, and destroy her with extreme prejudice. After the destruction of Ir-Yût, only Crota awaits you. But first, I want to read the flavor text of all the spoils of Crota. The Black Hammer. I cannot permit you to exist. The Black Spindle. It's not directly from Crota, but it is the upgraded version of the Black Hammer. Your only existence shall be that which I weave for you out of sorrow and woe. The followers of Crota swing hammers, sing death songs, fatal, final, absolute. Ir-Halak and Ir-Anûk laugh at Crota. Finality is a child's plaything, fit for one such as Crota, they say. No hammer for the unraveler and the weaver, but a spindle wound with woe. For their foes, no end of suffering. The hammer is a manifestation of all the might of Crota's armies, and the spindle represents a power similar to the Deathsinger Ir-Yût, although instead it is the daughters of Oryx, Ir-Halak and Ir-Anûk. Word of Crota. There was life, and he spoke unto it. It was silent, and lived no more. Word of Crota Adept. Death itself crumbled when he spoke, and what was left was hard and cruel. Crota is so powerful, he has entire beings that serve as an extension of himself. The will of Crota, the eyes of Crota, the swords of Crota. So it is not hard to imagine that when Crota speaks, it is with the might of 1,000 suns. Crota doesn't have an understanding of death like the Deathsinger, however he has the might of death itself in his voice. Abyss Defiant. We will not go quietly. Abyss Defiant Adept. Make the void roar. This weapon, I believe, represents Eris Morn and her time trapped with the Hive inside of the Hellmouth, and the revenge she seeks on Crota. Hunger of Crota. Would you defy me I am the Eater of Hope. The first weapon exclusive to Destiny 1. The Hive are born with worms inside of them. The worms provide them power, but demand a tithe. The more a hive lives, the more a hive kills, the more their worm hungers. Crota is exceptionally powerful, so his worm's appetite extends even to hope. It is not enough to merely kill, but he must steal even the hope from his victims. Swordbreaker. If you're going to face down a knight with an Ascendant blade, bring an Ascendant gun. This is ironic because the Ascendant Knights in the raid are only weak to the sword, but it's clear the weapon is powerful. Song of Iryut. It is the Song of Endings. This provides further proof that her song is to weave the power of death itself into any listeners. Light of the Abyss. In the dark beyond the Hellmouth, there is a terrible need for light. The second weapon to not make it to Destiny 2, it states an obvious fact, that the darkness of the moon is too much. It is up to you and your fire team to bring light into the darkness. Oversoul Edict. The light of the will of Crota shines down like a vast and inverse sun. Oversoul Edict Adept. The shadow of the will of Crota burns like the deepest winter, hopeless and without end. The will of Crota is Omnigul. She is the one that has been trying to bring Crota back into this world in the first place. It is possible that Omnigul helped create Crota's Oversoul that so closely binds death to his realm. Husk of the Pit. Desiccated and nigh inoperable, this hive artifact still manages to send shivers up your spine when fired. Eidolon Ally. We thought it was inanimate, but it has grown, changed. Ghost refuses to analyze it further, but I secretly believe it has become my friend. Essence of the Oversoul. Feed the Eidolon Ally, and it will be transformed. Erismorn. Necrochasm. Eternity is very close. Can you feel yourself slipping? Necrochasm Destiny 2. Is your light bright enough to stand in full gaze of the hive's abyss? Arise for Crota, son of Oryx, the Hope Eater, he who has seized the sky lair above Ceres, which peers into other planes, now vassal to the might of the Worldbreaker. Within these keyholes outbrood communes with unheard voices, they who whisper that the curse of our thralls is a blessing granted by the deep. Now in honor of the God Knight, we fashion these gluttonous whispers into death. His hellmouth becomes home to the profane, the corpse of the sky reborn in the abyss. Being the exotic of the raid, you would expect it to be a little less vague, but you have to really read between the lines to get the story of the Necrochasm. It seems that whoever is using this gun and upgrading it is slowly being consumed by the darkness inherent to the weapon. It is from a land bound tightly to death and hive magic, and could be corrupting the very light of the Guardian from the lore tab. It is possible that Necrochasm itself was even an artifact of the light, corrupted by the void, due to the Destiny 2 lore tab, but we can never be truly certain unless this is brought up elsewhere. Crota awaits you. Crota, the God Knight, has a deep history in this world. In the Books of Sorrow, Crota's creation is detailed, and his father speaks to him. 36. Eater of Hope. Verse 4, 6. Eater of Hope. You are Crota, my son, welcome. I fought my way out of hell to make you. I fought my traitor siblings, and I fought the swarming corpse of Akka, and I cut my way back into my own court, the high war which had been usurped. Once I had made war on Savathun and crippled her tribute so that she could never challenge me. And once I had tricked Xivu Arath and poisoned her tribute so that she could never try again to take my tablets. And once I had arranged my own lineages so that I would be the greatest among the hive and secure on my throne. Then I found a mother to make spawn. One of those spawn was you. Your life will be a battle too. You will have to win your place at the high war. I will give you nothing except this, your first sword and this name I have prepared for you. We fight a war against false hope, Crota. We chase a god called the Traveler, a huckster god who baits young life into building houses for it. These houses are unsafe, for they cannot stand against my hive, and these houses are a trap, for they lead young life away from the blade and the tooth, which are the tools of survival and the means of ascension. Only when the Traveler is extinguished will the universe be free to arrange itself and assume, by ruthless contest, its final, perfect shape. A shape which depends on nothing but itself. Thus I name you Crota, Eater of Hope. There is an oath upon me, Crota, my son, an oath against the wretched Teox. This I do not give to you. It is for me, your father, to bear. Let's go meet your aunts and uncles. Crota was born into this world a warrior, with a sword and his name and a mission to kill. He lived and battled in the name of Oryx, but how exactly he ended up on the moon is made clear in a few more Grimoire cards from the Books of Sorrow. 38. The Partition of Death. Verse 4-8. The Partition of Death. One day, Oryx decided to grow new wings. While he wrestled with his worm, he came upon his twin daughters dying in a wound between places. "What are you doing, my daughters?" he asked. He was afraid that Ir Halak and Ir Anuk were trying to go into the deep, where only the Tablets of Ruin allowed Oryx to go. "We are dying, father," they said, "as many times as we can manage." "That's adorably precocious," Oryx shook out his new wings. "But why?" "We propose a method by which ascendant souls can be detached and integrated into a tautological and autonomous thanatosphere, which we tentatively term an oversoul. Oversouls can be stored in the throne world as a mechanism of enhanced death resilience. As a side effect, new refinements to our death song may be achieved, moving us closer to a generally effective paracausal death impulse." Oryx brandished his sword. "Speak the royal tongue, or I'll pin you up for air to eat. If we can separate our deaths from ourselves and hide them, we will be hard to kill." Oryx went to his son Crota. "Go keep an eye on your sisters," he said. "You can learn cunning from them." But while Oryx traveled to observe the deep destroy an ancient fortress world, Crota conspired with his sisters to learn their secrets. "I too will experiment with a wound," he said. With his sword, Crota cut open a new wound into a new space. In here he thought he might obtain a secret power. Out of this wound came machines called the Vex. They invaded Oryx's throne world. 39. Open your eye, go into it. Verse 4-9. Open your eye, go into it. The Vex clattered around, constructing large problems. At first their constructions were deranged because they didn't understand the sword logic, which defined all rules in Oryx's throne world. The geometry perplexed them. "I'll cut them apart," Crota said. But just then, the Vex ritual of better thoughts manifested a mind called Quoria, Blade Transform. Quoria deduced the sword logic. "I have to kill everything," Quoria resolved. "Then I will be powerful." Crota's gate began to emit warrior Vex, huge and brassy. He leapt forward to fight them, but they blinked away. After they fled from Crota, they killed 2,000 of Oryx's acolytes and 10,000 of his thrall. Soon they had established themselves as powers in this world by right of slaughter. "Come forth, sister wizards," called Ir Halak. "We need you." Ir Anuk pulled a sword star out of the sky. Together the wizards charged it with killing power and made an annihilator totem, which they used to smash the Vex. "Close the wound, Brother Crota," Anuk ordered. "We will find a cunning way to destroy them, but only after they stop constructing problems on us." But Quoria had instanced itself to the other side of the gate and built a holdfast to keep the way open. Quoria's objective was to exploit the paracausal physics of Oryx's throne to become divine. It organized a series of test invasions. For 100 years of local time, the siblings fought the Vex. When the Vex came into the sword world, they were inevitably annihilated, but when the Hive went into the Vex world, they lost too much of their power to win. "Father's going to eat our souls," Halak sighed. Quoria captured some worm larvae and began experimenting with them. Soon Quoria Blade Transform manifested religious tactics. By directing worship at the worms, Quoria learned it could alter reality with mild ontopathogenic effects. Being an efficient machine, Quoria manufactured a priesthood and ordered all its subminds to believe in worship. Then it set about abducting and killing dangerous organisms so it could bootstrap itself to Hive godhood. For some Vex reason, Quoria never attempted to introduce worm larvae into its mind fluid. Savathun was laughing because she had tricked Crota into cutting that place. This drew the attention of the worm, our god. Oryx, called Ir, set your house in order. 40. An emperor for all outcomes. Verse 4:10. An emperor for all outcomes. Oryx rushed home and read from the Tablets of Ruin. He put some of the Vex into wounds to be taken by the power of the deep. Thus, he turned the Vex against each other. Quoria manifested a range of tactics, but none of them were adaptive. Oryx crushed all the Vex in his throne. Oryx thought that he should study geometry, like the Vex. It was the map of perfect shapes, but first he had to punish imperfection. "My son," he said, "this is your punishment. Come home glorious, or die forgotten." He picked up Crota by the legs and threw him into the Vex Gate network. Crota battled through history, becoming a legendary demon. In his early centuries, he often spared a few victims to hear oaths and protests against his father. Later, he came to understand Oryx, and he made temples and monuments wherever he went. Crota's connection to the Vex are possibly how he made it to our moon in the first place. It also explains the presence of the Shrine of Oryx on the moon. In his father's name, Crota has battled all the way from the deep reaches of space, through the Vexgate network, to right before you. After standing around a summoning crystal, the rubble rises into the air, repairing itself and summoning Crota, the Eater of Hope. This will truly be a battle worthy of Hive Godhood. More of Crota's minions attack, and Crota himself is relentless, firing an arc blast from a distance and smashing down any soul unlucky enough to enter his range. Slay the minions and the Sword Bearer, and depending on the version of the game you're playing, the Sword Bearer is either the one to kill Crota or the one to take down his shield, making him vulnerable. But either way, your fire team battles fiercely to defeat him, and you banish Crota once and for all from this world. Crota has conquered many worlds, defeated many foes, but in the end his strength does not match you and your fire team. Crota and his minions have been dispatched once and for all, and the revenge for Eris Morn has been achieved. You are Crota's bane, but through the deep, a message is sent. The Hive tie to each other. The weak supply blood to the strong, and that is true for even those above Crota. Crota tithed to his father Oryx, the Taken King, and deep in space, Oryx feels the death of his son, and sets his sights on the Sol system. But that's the story of Crota, and the Abyss on the Moon. Thanks for watching.